All right. Happy noon, everybody. We're going to just wait a few minutes, a couple of seconds while all of the participants join in. Hi, my name is George Brown, Highlight Foundation. Looking forward to the special webinar with Kat Galliano, our Instagram expert here at the Highlight Foundation. Um, just going to give a couple of minutes. I see a number of people are still logging on. I'll be right with you. That better, Harold. Thank you for that tip on the audio. Great. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. Okay. So, greetings, everybody. My name is George Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Highlights Foundation. And we're so excited today to be joined with our good friend, Kat Galliano, who is our Instagram expert at the Highlights Foundation. So without further ado, Kat, please take it away.
Let me know if everyone can hear me because I might have to grab George's microphone audio set. Okay, great. I can hear. Okay, wonderful. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This is so exciting and slightly nerve-wracking, so bear with me. I am going to share my screen with all of you right now. So give me a second while I do that. Okay. I believe I'm shared and good to go. One second. All right. I think we're good. So, hi everyone. My name is Kat Galliano, and I am in charge of Highlights Instagram. I took over in May. So, thank you so much for joining in today and spending your lunch hour with us. So, let me switch over to the next page. Okay. So, Instagram. Writers, why should you consider Instagram? Instagram, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of data and then we're going to get a little bit more specific. So I just want to also clarify that this is Instagram 101. This is for those of you that have an Instagram account that you're not really active in, or have an Instagram account that that is sort of sitting idle, or, you want to start a brand new Instagram, or you want to sort of change strategy in your current Instagram. This is not so much for the advanced folks. This is more for people just trying to get comfortable with the idea of having a social platform that's a little bit more, a little bit more out there than Facebook. So Instagram has over 500 million active users, which leaves behind such big dogs as Twitter, Snapchat, and Pinterest. It is rated the #1 social media engagement tool for brands, and it has gained time in terms of people are actively on this social media platform at least 50 minutes a day. So that's a lot of time that people are spending on this platform. And all this information was provided by the website at the bottom right there. Leading to my next slide. My connection with Instagram. So Instagram was launched in October 2010, and I've pretty much been a user since then. I opened my Instagram when I was I believe I was a junior in college, I believe a junior in college. And it's been pretty much my go-to social media platform ever since. I enjoy it tremendously for its different features, and I do spend the majority of my time on Instagram versus Facebook and Twitter. I came to Instagram at least for the Highlights Foundation, organically. It happened to be that I was an RA for a poetry workshop last fall, and just sitting around at the dinner table, like some of you that have been to campus, you sit around at the dinner table and you get to know each other. And a lot of the guests started asking me questions about my social media usage. And I said, specifically, that was a poetry workshop that I was RAing, and I told them, I was like, oh well, I consume a lot of poetry on Instagram. And it was sort of like this what collective what's around the table. And for someone that it's normal to consume poetry on Instagram, it was I was a little shocked to hear that was so shocking to so many people, because again, that's sort of an everyday thing for me. So that sort of led to the guests talking to the faculty and asking me to explain a little bit about how this platform works. And I said absolutely. I put together a quick presentation, talked about it, and that sort of kind of got the ball rolling. In the spring, Allison and George came to me asking me if I would consider taking over Highlights Instagram, and I said absolutely. And so that's how that started. And hopefully you've seen the improvement. I try to post every single day. I try to engage our followers, and I've seen a tremendous growth in organic followers, which is something that's very important. We don't buy any followers. Everything is organic. Everybody, seems to be a real person. Yeah, so that's sort of how I came about in Instagram with Highlights. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I have been writing since I was a child. I received my MFA from the New School in Writing for Children and Young Adults last spring. I'm currently on submission and hoping for the best, but I was previously a journalist. I worked in PR as well. I did PR at Telemundo 47 and NBC4 New York. I worked at 30 Rockefeller, and then from there I moved to nonprofit news, where I worked for many years, and then I worked at Adobe for a little under 2 years, and now I've sort of juggle many hats, including the Highlights Instagram account. I want to start off by saying that Instagram, this is sort of like this phrase that I created. Instagram is sort of, I like to call it a museum of my life. So you're curating your page with all your best moments. So that's the way I like to think about a profile, as someone's museum and all their best moments. All right, 1 second, going on to the next page. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying, again, that this is pretty much for people that are very new to Instagram. And second, I'm going to hold off till questions till the end. There should be a Q&A button at the very bottom of your screen. Please make sure you submit your questions there. And at the very end, those questions will be given back to me, and I will be able to answer as best of my ability to your liking. So again, Instagram is different than Facebook and Twitter, which can primarily be accessed both on a desktop and on a mobile phone or tablet. Instagram, however, is different because you really, really have to be accessing it on a phone or a tablet. I mean, there is a desktop version, but pretty much the only use of that is to see a profile on a bigger scale. Other than that, it's really not desktop friendly. It really is a mobile phone / tablet friendly device, app. So first, in order to open up your Instagram, you need to have an email linked to your account, or link your Facebook to your Instagram. You can link your Facebook to your Instagram if you prefer things to be a little bit more streamlined, or you could just, add an email with a new password and create your account that way. So first you have to find the app, which of course you go to your local app store, whether it be the Google Play Store, the App Store, or whatever other app stores there are out there. You need to download the app. then plug in the information with your username. You have to pick a good handle. The thing is, these are going to be your writer profiles. So you want to pick something that's, in close relation to your name, or if your name is taken, have like, your name writes, your name art, your name illustrator, something that just ties into your work. So that way it's a good place to find you easily, and it's a good staple of everything you represent. Okay, next page. Okay, there we go. So these are just like, I took quick screenshots of like all the steps it takes to make this. So you have to create a password, you have to add a phone number and or an email, and it'll send you a code, and that way it'll send you a code and you type that code in, and that's the way you're verifying your account. Okay. Next page. Okay. So it's gonna go through a couple of different steps. I actually made a brand new Instagram account yesterday to screenshot and show the process of a brand new account, as opposed to the account I currently have, because this was just easier in terms of like starting from scratch. So it says welcome. So this was my perfect example. Cat Writes would be like the Instagram account that I created. This is not my current Instagram. This is just the one that I created for the sole purpose of this webinar. So that's what I mean in terms of like creating a handle that ties into who you are. So whether it just be your full name or writes or art or illustrator or, anything of that nature, author, books, whatnot, something that ties into you. So then it's obviously going to show you find your Facebook friends, because again, like I mentioned, Facebook owns Instagram. So it's going to ask you to connect. You can just skip this if you don't feel like looking for Facebook friends on Instagram, or you can click into it and it can show you the Facebook friends that you have that currently have Instagram accounts too, so you can follow. Then the next step is to add a profile photo. Okay, and so after that, it's going to say the discover people. So it's going to suggest some accounts to you. So funny enough, the very first account that came up for me was obviously the Highlights Foundation. So I followed that, and then I went in and followed a couple of other different things. So let's see, next page. So now you have a blank slate. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a blank Instagram, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about those of you that have an Instagram, that are considering switching gears on your current Instagram. So for right now, we're going to talk about blank Instagrams, and then we're going to go into, the ones that are, have followers or want to switch gears or don't want to manage many accounts. So bear with me. So we're going to go into what says edit profile. So you're going to click into that, and once you click into that, it's going to separate and it's going to say personal or business. So I personally suggest that you switch your account from a personal to a business account. So that simply means switching your actual account from being like a friends and family kind of just you based to making it a business / public profile, in the sense that when you switch it to a business account, it allows you to track analytics. And since Instagram is free and it gives you the tools of switching it to a business account, which then allows you to track your own analytics on your own page, I highly suggest you do that. Because A, it's free, so it would really be silly for you not to do that, because that allows you to track what's going on your page when you post. So let's say you decide to post at 3 o'clock and you only get a couple of likes. And then the next day you decide to post at 7 p.m. and you get double the likes. So the analytics will be able to track that for you and let you know when is the highest rate of people coming to your profile, whether it be following you, unfollowing you, liking your picture, commenting. It just gives you a quick little toolkit of these things that are super helpful to keep your profile engaging and to keep it, going. Okay, next. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about. So when you get to the edit profile, it's going to show you, I circled it right here, switch to professional account, which again, I highly suggest you do. And then it separates it into business and creator or content. I can't read it. It's blocking it right now, but I think it says content creator or something. So click on that. On creator, yes. So then it's going to ask you, then you're just going to go to next, and then it's going to ask you what you want to label yourself as. So I put the word writer in, and it came up with 3 options. It came up with writer, author, journalist. Of course, if you're an illustrator and that's your beat, go ahead and type in illustrator, or, whatever fits your motto and your style of what you want your platform to be, go ahead and write that. So for the purposes of this fake Instagram account that I created for today, I went with the word writer. So I was just talking to you about the analytics of switching it to a professional page. And so you're going to go to the 3 lines at the very top right, and then it's going to give you this little bar. And so you're going to click Insights, which has those little, almost like that little graph. You're going to click on Insights, and it's going to bring you to this page where it says content and a couple of other things at the very top. My camera's blocking it, so I can't see it, but it says content and then 2 other words. And so that obviously everything right now says 00, simply because there is no activity on it. I created this yesterday. So I wanted to show you something that if you put 0 up, so for an example, like obviously this is brand new and I created it yesterday, but think of if you have a profile and it's inactive and it's just sitting there, this is exactly what your page is going to look like. It's going to say 000 because there's been no interaction on it. So if you're not putting forth a little bit of energy, it's going to look like this because no one's coming to visit your page. Okay, next. So we sort of wrapped up the profile, switching it from personal to professional. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about just regular posting videos, pictures, and whatnot on your main page. So I am a firm believer that your actual main page where your posts go should be really clean, aesthetically pleasing, and really share what you want to share. So for each person, it's going to be something different. Each person may strictly just want to focus on their art. Some people want to show, their dog, their writing process, their being a writer, and or their kids. So it just make sure it's like a good mix and it's not some random thing thrown in there. Just make sure you have a goal and that there's a purpose for your posting and that you're not just posting something to post something, because people are going to start coming to your page and following you for your content. And obviously there's attractive things on your page, which is why your followers follow and stick with you. So for those of you that have Instagram accounts that you're not quite sure where it's going, or you want to sort of switch gears and make it more of a writer page, if you have a substantial amount of followers, I highly suggest you stick with your page. If you only have like 30 followers and you're like, you know what, I really don't care and I would like to start over and just strictly focus on an author page, you can go ahead and do that. But shifting gears is it's simple. It's not very difficult. It's just start posting stuff that gears more to your goal. And that's the most important thing here, is to figuring out what your online presence is going to look like and what your goal is. And I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. I just wanted to showcase here the very simple steps of posting for those of you that this is unfamiliar with. At the bottom of your page, at the very bottom of your account, your app, there's a little plus sign. You're going to click that. That's going to give access to your camera roll. You're going to pick whatever photo that it is that you want. I happen to put this picture of the cabin over on campus. And then on the very next page, make sure you write a caption, something engaging, something that, you know, it could be a quote, it could be something that you type up, it could be a question to your followers to keep them engaged. If you take a picture with somebody, make sure to ask them if you can post it, and if you want to tag them, that's fine too. The location, you can add that as well. And these are just like very simple steps of how just to post. Okay, so apart from Instagram posts, like you're on your main page, there's something called Instagram stories that is a lot of fun, but not for everybody. So um, one person told me a couple months ago that she thought it was very cartoony and it wasn't for her. And I said, hey, you make of it of what you want. It's a fun place. And for me specifically, I like to play around with stories because the main post, like the main page of all my like my timeline, I like to have my pictures be very clean, very aesthetically pleasing, very put together. And my stories is a place where I like to have fun and just post random pictures that don't necessarily fit into my timeline, but I want to share anyways. Or if I'm like, you know, for those of you that are authors or on the road or, you know, doing things that you don't want necessarily on your page and you think it would be better more as a story, which, you know, disappears in 24 hours, which I want to stress because they don't last forever. They can disappear. So there's an ability to write, which is what I wrote the word snow. Then you can actually type whatever you want out, which I typed out snow. You can also write things out, which I wrote like a squiggly line behind the word snow to indicate that you can draw or write or do anything. And then I put a GIF of a snowman and a GIF of the word tea time. So you can add like these cartoon-like features. You can add music. You can add polls. You can add suggestions and questions, question and answers. It's just a really great opportunity to directly connect with your followers. So let's say, I don't know, you're at the airport and you're stuck, you know, on a layover or you're delayed or something, and you have a few minutes and you want people to ask you questions. So you can throw up an AMA is what they call it, an Ask Me Anything. And then just say, hey, like have a few minutes, you know, throw in your questions. So you'll put in the question box and people will send you questions and you can answer. So it's just like a really great way to stay engaged and not have to post on your main, but still keep posting on stories as a way to still be active, but not on your main. So it's just a way to have more fun and throw up stuff that you wouldn't necessarily put as like a main post, if that makes any sense. All right. Oh, and I didn't, sorry, my screen is blocking my face. So you can also do lots of filters. So that's me. I was playing around with filters yesterday. And apart from taking pictures, you can also do like selfie mode and talk into the camera. So I've seen a lot of writers and authors talk directly into the camera to their followers, whether it be updating them on a project they're working on, or you know, taking questions, or you know, a day in the life, or you know, at a signing or anything. It's just a really great tool to keep your people engaged. And if there's, I don't know, let's say you're at a book festival and you collect a whole bunch of stories from that day, you can actually group it together and make it a highlight and keep that permanently on your page. Because like I mentioned, stories go away in 24 hours. That's the whole purpose of them, is that they disappear after 24 hours. But if there's like a day where you're like, ooh, I have a really great story day, you can just lump all those together and keep it as a permanent highlight. So if you're a little confused as to what I'm talking about, you can head over to the highlights Instagram page, and underneath the bio section, it shows a couple of highlights that we have created already. I created a highlights for my visit when I came in June, sort of just like a walk around the property, and showed like the different parts of campus so that people who are interested in coming have a visual representation of what they're getting themselves into. So I did like a walk around, and that's a highlight I made. Um, if this sounds a little tricky, it's okay. It can get a little confusing, but it's just essentially lumping a bunch of stories and keeping them more permanently on your page as opposed to it disappearing in 24 hours. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Insta poetry and having your work on your social media. So these are two examples of two Insta poets who really got their start on Instagram. Ruby Kaur and Young Pablo. Young Pueblo. And yeah, they post their work and they write their work and post their work. So there's a couple of you that want to do this or have started doing this, which I caution you do at your own risk simply because you're putting your work out there. And so obviously these two are exceptionally popular and famous. And as you can see, they're verified with their little blue check marks. And they all have book deals as well. But, just be conscious about putting your work out there and, make sure it's not something that because the thing is that publishing houses can get very, depending on your publishing house, that they can totally be game with the idea of your work being out there or not. So just be careful about what you post, and if it's something that you really want to get published, maybe don't post that one on Instagram, or maybe post like a poem that you created that day, or something that you're not super attached to. Maybe that is a good thing to post, as opposed to like the one piece of work you've been working on for a while that you really want published. So I just wanted to show you that it is a very popular way of getting people to your page, because Insta poetry is huge, and it's definitely a way that I consume poetry. Just be careful about, it's really with caution. Okay, so some guidelines about sort of setting yourself up on Instagram. You really have to figure out what your goal is. What is your strategy? What do you want to do on this platform? What kind of online presence do you want to have? And how much of yourself do you want to share? There's so much opportunity, because it doesn't take much time. That's what I think the misconception is, that you have to spend all your time on Instagram, and that's not the case. You have to sit with yourself and figure out the kind of person that you're the kind of online presence you want to have. There's you can be strictly I'm sharing my author writing experience process. That's the kind of online person I want to be. Or, if you want to incorporate your dog or your kids or your spouse or your friends, like a little bit mix of maybe your travel. So it really is up to you to sit down and decide what's best for you and what works for you. The next is that I want to talk about is the 3 C's. We need to remember that we have to be consistent. So if you decide to make Instagram really your thing, and you want to build up your following and you want to build up your community, you have to be consistent. So a minimum of 2 posts per week is recommended, although really you should be posting at least once a day. And once you get the hang of it, 1 post a day, won't take you very long. It could take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. And, for the bigger moments, like, if you want to be more talking about your process, or if you're at a signing, or if you're on holiday or whatever, like obviously those will take up a little bit more time, and you can be more invested in those moments. But really, it takes is posting 1 picture a day, and just, posting it, and then actually just adding it to your Insta story as well, just to make sure that there's some sort of something happening on your page. Um, Building a community. Whether you have 100 followers or 5,000 followers, there's still a person that chose to follow your account. So don't stress about your number count, but try to engage with the ones that are there by asking questions. So like, let's say in your caption, you could say like, how is everyone today? Or what books are you reading? Or, how do you write? Or, where do you write? So if you ask a question, people want to respond. And so that's always a great thing, is because it's a call to action. You're inviting people to partake in your account, which is wonderful. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. And so if let's say there's a caption that has no question, but somebody, or you post a picture of like, I don't know, a beautiful sunset or something, and somebody writes, wow, this is beautiful. You can still like their comment, or even just respond, thanks, or just something to know that that person has been seen. Clarity. Be clear about what the direction of your page is. And that goes back to having a goal and having a strategy on this platform, because there's nothing worse than following somebody that just sort of has everything out of order. And since these are going to be, or are, your author, writer, illustrator, artist, whatever creative business account, you really want to keep writing, art, whatever, as your main focus, and then 2 or 3 other things that represent you. So you just want to be clear, and you don't want it to be sort of all over the place, because just like it took a quick second for someone to follow you, they can unfollow you. So it's just always be clear and just have a goal about what you want. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about hashtags. So hashtags are incredibly important. On the right-hand side, I have a screenshot of hashtag am writing and every example that comes underneath it. So what I recommend, if you're either, brand new to Instagram, rebranding yourself on Instagram, whatever, I would honestly take some time, so let's start with the goal and strategy should be first. So after you sort of determine the kind of person you want to be online, you should take a little bit of time and start sort of searching Instagram. Go to different authors, different writers, different influencers, different people, accounts, and start seeing what you like about these accounts, and maybe start modeling how you want to look after them. The second thing you should look at is their hashtags, because hashtags draw people that otherwise may not know who you are. So if you put hashtag kidlit, people that are looking at the kidlit hashtag might come across your photo, and then will then subsequently go and click your picture and then be like, you know what, this author, illustrator, writer, creative is very interesting. I'm going to follow them too. So what I did for highlights is I spent a little bit of time going through different nonprofits and going through, what they were doing and what hashtags they were doing. And then grabbed a couple of those and then went to different authors and creatives and look at the hashtags they were using, and sort of like started melding together my own list of hashtags. And so I typed them all out on like a note on your phone. And so I typed them all out and I just copy paste them and drop them into my picture. So you can see that in pretty much every highlight picture that I post, the second comment is a bunch of hashtags, which draw people in. And I've seen a tremendous amount of people following and engaging with our account since I took over in May. I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I think we're almost at like 1,000 new followers since I took over. And yeah, and you can also follow these hashtags. So just like you can follow an account, you can follow these hashtags as well. And these are just really like inviting people to look at your page. It's almost like a friend of mine told me it's like being in a living room, like you're talking with people and then another conversation is happening over there and you're inviting those people to come into your conversation. So you want the like hashtag M writing group to take a look at your page or your group. So that's sort of like what we're trying to do here with hashtags, is just invite people that happen to be looking at this hashtag into your page, and then possibly get a follow out of it or some sort of interaction. So last but not least, be safe and have fun. This is still social media, and since this is public, and you're susceptible to a lot of comments, a lot of anything. So post what you're comfortable with. I personally, for my own Instagram, my own personal Instagram, not the highlights, I don't like to post things in real time. I like to post things after I leave, or after I'm not there, or I post things, later on with a hashtag like Throwback Thursday or Flashback Friday or Way Back Wednesday or just throwback in general. I like to be in control in that sense, that I like to post things when I'm not there or have left, simply because I don't have the need to have people know where I am at that moment. Again, that's me, and that's, whatever you prefer, you need to do what's best for you. Of course, like anything, when you invite people in, you might get comments that make you uncomfortable. I've certainly received a bunch of things that were inappropriate, so you just block, delete, and block, and that's very simple. I screen capped it right there on the right hand side. It's very simple. Just block that person and off they go. And this should be fun. This should be fun. Like, we need to remember that I've thrown a lot of information at you and a lot of kind of homework and whatnot, but this should really just be fun. You should be wanting to showcase things in your life as a creative, and you're really in control of what you want to share. And let's say you post something and you realize, that's not, I don't really like that. You can delete it. Or if you post something and it's not very successful in terms of likes, you can delete it. You're in control of this. And plus, it doesn't take a lot of time. Again, I just want to stress that it doesn't take a lot of time. It really is up to you. You are in control. I just ask you that you be safe and you have fun. That's really what what I want to stress. And that's pretty much my chat with you guys. If you have any questions or want to reach out and talk about specifics, please feel free to email me. And I believe we're going to take questions now.
Yes, we got a lot of good questions coming in. Kat, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Christina.
Perfect. Okay. I've divided them into categories a little bit, and I'm going to try our best to get to all of them. But some logistics questions to start out with. Someone had tried to open a second account, one for personal and one for business, but they can't figure out how to do that in the App Store. So do you have any ideas for people who want to have a personal and a business one separately?
Yes. So actually, you don't even have to go to the App Store. You just go to your Instagram and you should be able to I think it's like sign out or add a second account. It should already be in your Instagram account. So you should be able to switch. Actually, let me look it up for you right now, because I have so you should be able to add an account right onto your current personal account. You don't need to download a second app. Like, no, just from your Instagram account, you should be able to add your second one in, and you should be able to switch back and forth very, very seamlessly from personal to public, or to professional, I should say.
Got it. Okay. And there's an author or illustrator who's finding that if they want to post art that they're creating on a computer, they have to text or email it to yourself, to him or herself, and post it on the phone. Is that a best practice?
Wait, can you repeat that one for me? Sorry.
If they're creating art on the computer, they're finding that they have to text it to themselves or email it to themselves and then post it from a phone. Is that the way to do it?
Yeah, because the thing is that Instagram is a phone / tablet based pretty much only app.
Got it. How long can the captions be, and what is the max is there a max character limit like on Twitter?
incredibly long captions. I don't actually know the exact character limit, but it's not like Twitter where you only have 100 plus words. You can write very, very, very lengthy captions. You just have to be mindful that people are scrolling, so they might not necessarily stop to read the whole thing. Which is why I recommend a little bit more tighter. But there is no limit. So please, if you want to do longer, you're more than welcome to. Because I don't believe I know the character limit, but I've seen literally almost novel length captions.
Got it. Okay, and can you post short videos?
Yes. So you can, so there's two video components on Instagram. There's the Instagram video on story, which disappears, or there's an actual video that you can post onto your Instagram profile timeline. And that you can either use, the video component of whatever cell phone you have, or use the video component inside Instagram. I personally prefer the camera on the phone because you have a little bit more control in terms of just, it's not in Instagram. So you can, if you mess up, you can just start again, and then upload that video straight into Instagram. I believe there's a 1 minute limit on video on Instagram on your profile page. And then it gets, if it's a long video, it'll get swept into Instagram TV, which is a whole nother thing that we'll talk about at a later date. But yes, you can, essentially.
Got it. Okay, there's a lot of questions pouring in. Is there a way, is there a best practice on deleting an account? Like if you wanted to start over?
Yeah, I think you just go straight into just deleting account. I think in the app it should be in your settings. Let me pull it up. I think you should just be able to go to edit profile or your account settings and just delete. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Before we get into the strategic questions, I'm looking for the logistic ones. How do you add spaces between paragraphs?
So this is a little tricky. Instagram is very finicky in spacing. So what I have found as my best choice in doing this is adding a dot. So not a period. On your keyboard, there's a dot. And if you go on the Instagram account, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And that dot on the keyboard is a character and breaks the line. And so that's the way that I'm able to put spaces in between paragraphs. Because Instagram, for some reason, won't allow simply by just pressing enter or space to have a blank line. You have to break it up with dots. But yeah, that's the easiest way.
And there's a lot of questions about hashtags in the comments versus the post, because they've been seeing what you've been doing on highlights, but is there a best practice or any thoughts you have on that?
So this is a very personal question. It's mostly like, what is your own preference? I, as the person in charge of highlights, Instagram, and actually my own, I prefer the hashtags to be hidden in a second comment, simply because if you scroll, you'll notice that the hashtags don't come up when you're scrolling. They're hidden because I prefer it to be hidden, because then it's just like, oh, you see a beautiful picture. Oh, what a witty caption. Oh, there's a bunch of hashtags. I just think it ruins the viewing experience. And that's just a personal preference. If it doesn't bother you, then go ahead and put it straight in your first comment. But again, that's really a personal preference. And my preference is I like it hidden because it ruins the viewing experience. And that's huge for me because I want a clean, uniform look.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to switch over to some strategic questions as I try to get the rest of them into groups. About hashtags, I'm going to give you a couple questions, and I think you can talk about them in general. Are there any such things as too much, or is there such a thing as too many hashtags? And then how do you choose your hashtags? And are they really the best way to increase your reach And is there any other things that you would recommend?
Yeah, so there is a limit. I believe it's, oh God, I don't want to sound wrong, but I think it's 30 is the limit per comment. I want to say it's 30 because I definitely max out every time for highlights. So I think it's between 25 and 30. And in terms of finding the correct hashtags for yourself, that's really doing a little bit of research on your own, and which is what I mentioned earlier, of going through different accounts and different profiles and following different people that you sort of want to model yourself after and see what they're hashtagging. So for highlights, I looked at a lot of nonprofits and saw what kind of hashtags nonprofits were using. Then I looked through a lot of author pages and writing accounts and poet accounts and things that were talking about actively writing. So I took a little bit from that group and then, sort of tailor it every time depending on the photo that I'm posting. So if I'm posting a snowy cabin picture, I'm going to, obviously have the nonprofit tags, the writing tags, and then I'm going to include something like outdoors or Pennsylvania or hashtag snowing or hashtag winter. So it really is, you sort of have to do a little bit of research and see what kind of hashtags you're looking for. And yes, they do increase your followings, and I am testament to that. Since I started implementing hashtags in May, I've grown the highlights account a little less than 1,000 already. So, and I think it has a lot to do with the hashtags. And so it may be a little bit of a headache, but the best solution that I found is just pre-typing everything on like a notepad in your phone. So that way you just have to copy paste and drop it in your post. So that way you don't actually have to sit and type every single one. The only ones you'll be typing out are, the ones that are specific to whatever post. So like I mentioned, every post always includes the writing element, the nonprofit element, but then I'll always tailor the very bottom of it to say hashtag outdoors, hashtag winter, hashtag cabin, or hashtag, I don't know, poet or art, whatever. I'll tailor it to whatever the picture is that I'm posting.
Got it. And any other, there was a question about, just for those who don't really know what a hashtag is or how it increases the conversation. Can you just go over that again?
Of course.
Why to use them?
Sure. So hashtags really allow people that you may not have, like just random people that are interested in the same thing that you are, to find you. So obviously when you open your account or you have your account or you already have your followers, you're following friends, you're following authors that you love, or, acquaintances, colleagues, whatnot. But hashtags allow other people to find you. So if you put hashtag kidlit and I happen to be on the hashtag kidlit and find you, and I'm like, oh, here's, Jane Doe author, and oh, let me look at her page. Oh, she has a really interesting content. Oh, I've never heard of her book. Oh, she's writing a book. Oh, that's very cool. I'm going to follow her. So that's what the hashtag allows, is that other people to be drawn to you and to your account that you wouldn't necessarily be crossing paths with. But because you put a hashtag kidlit, hashtag, children's books, or whatever the case is, it allows these other eyeballs to come to you.
Got it. And a little bit more of a logistics question. Some people are asking about handles and the @ symbol. Can you go over that? What is a handle and using the @ symbol?
Absolutely. So the handle is actually your Instagram account name. So @ is a symbol that goes before that. So whatever your name, so let's say like for the example that I used for this presentation, it was Cat Gal Writes. @ is just what goes in front of that, and your handle is your name. And then how you tag people, how you find people, it's always going to be @. So make sure your handle is something that, is closely correlates to you, whether it is your full name, your name plus rights, your name / art, like whatever, it, make sure it tailors to you in some way.
Some more strategy questions. Is Instagram helpful for picture book writers? Should you wait until you've published a book before opening an account, or from a
Uh,
strategic perspective, when should you do that?
you should already be like you should already be on Instagram. If you're not even published, I think it's a great opportunity to show people your process. Like you can post a picture of, being at the library and researching all these picture books, or even suggest your favorite picture books, or put a story about, I don't know, you know, a day in the life, and you're typing and you're writing, and it's, you don't have to be published to have a writing account. I think, it's important to already put yourself out there, so that way, you start gathering, and let's say you have 150 followers and your book comes out next year, you can already start telling people, those 150 people, hey, I have books. And if you incorporate the hashtags, you can start growing. So then when your book actually comes around, or the pre-sale for it, you already have, 300 people that can totally pick up your book. So I think the sooner you get on it, and the sooner you realize sort of how you want to manage yourself on it, the better.
Got it. A lot of people are asking for other strategies for increasing followers, and just getting more influence on Instagram. Any thoughts on that?
I think hashtags is really the most important. And if you can sort of lock that down, I think you're in a really good place. And you just have to be consistent. Like, these things don't happen overnight. You have to be consistent. You have to put in the work. It becomes a little bit like a third or fourth job or second job, but it's a fun one, and it's not super time consuming. But definitely you have to put in the work for it, and you'll start seeing followers increasing. And you can actually also put hashtags into your Insta stories. So maybe somebody didn't actually see your post, but saw your Insta post and came to you that way. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Is there a way to find data as far as like the strategies of posting consistently and using hashtags and things like that? Is there any way to analytically figure out if it's working?
I mean, that's why I suggest people switch their personals into professional accounts, because at least you have a little bit of analytic to give you an idea of like what has been working and what hasn't. I mean, you can always play around with your hashtags and eliminate and start over and make a new list. But that analytic tool gives you at least the explanation of like what times are working best, because sometimes you post at a certain time, and you have the same hashtags, but you post at like 7 p.m. versus like 11 p.m. and there's a huge difference, because 7 p.m. is like a dinner time, so people are probably with their families and whatnot, and 11 p.m. people are in bed, sort of just like checking last minute things. So it just, which is why I stress the business part, switching over your account to professional, so that at least you have that sort of small toolkit to give you an indication of what's working, what you're doing, what's working, and what isn't.
Got it. And a lot of people are asking questions about Insta stories. I'm going to try to give you a couple of them because I don't think we'll be able to answer all of them. But just, can you go over again, posting a story? How do you do multiple things in one story? How do you put things together? You talked about combining stories into a highlights. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so Insta story, first of all, is it could be a post, a video, or like a selfie mode video. So like you talking into the camera, and I think it runs about 15 seconds. Or if you keep clicking down on it, you can do multiple stories of you talking. It goes away in 24 hours. And it's a lot of fun because there are different components you can add into it. You can add music, you can add a Q&A, you can add, you can type things into it, you can add GIFs, you can actually draw into it. There's just a lot of extra components in the story. It's modeled after Snapchat. And so a highlight is essentially, like I mentioned, an Insta story disappears in 24 hours, and that you have to remember. So let's say you have a really epic day and you recorded I don't know, 20 different stories that day of your day at the book festival. And you're like, hey, everyone, I'm here at, I don't know, the Miami Book Festival, and follow me along for the day. And you're going to see this a lot of in different authors' Insta stories. And so let's say you record, or even, you know, you have 20 stories that are just really great. And you're like, you know what? This was such a great compilation of stories. I don't want it to be over in 24 hours. So what you do is underneath your profile photo circle, underneath there's like a little plus sign, and it says add highlight. And highlight simply means like the highlights of your day, which is, I know it's a lot of like terminology and lingo that can be a little confusing. So I apologize. I'm trying to be as clear and thorough as possible, but highlights is just essentially a permanent Insta story. Because like I said, Insta stories disappear in 24 hours. So if you want a compilation of like the Insta stories that you did in that day, because they were really great, you will click that plus sign underneath your profile bio and compile, like click from your camera roll, all the stories that you loved that you recorded from that day. You click them in your camera roll and it'll compile them together and keep it permanently on your page. So that's a good idea for like artists if they want to have like one highlight, or illustrators to have one highlight of like their, I don't know, their watercolor work or their cartoon style work, or, you know, whatever, etc. Or like a day from whatever experience, like whether it was a book signing or a book festival or whatnot. So those are what a highlight is. It's just a permanent Insta story, because Insta stories disappear in 24 hours.
Got it. One person had a question about any strategies for writing your bio on Instagram.
Yes. So definitely include your author page or your website of any kind. For sure include that. Second, just, you know, be authentic, include what you want, but make sure you put that you're a writer, or that, you know, of children's books and whatnot, but make sure you're just clear and truthful in what your bio says.
Got it. And can you talk about using your Instagram account to help promote books? Do publishers and agents follow authors on Instagram, or how does it play into that process?
I'm not quite sure if like publishing houses follow you. I don't know. I'm not published, so I don't exactly know, but having your own followers is already a great thing, because you're already self-promoting yourself, and Instagram is a free way to do it, especially if you're in the business professional setting. You have like a little bit of analytics to see what's working, and it's just an easy, fun, free way to just promote yourself. So, you know, not everybody's going to get a marketing budget to tour when their books come out, so why not just try to pump yourself out as much as you can with what you've got, and Instagram is a really great way to do that.
Got it. And I'm gonna also, there's a lot of questions that we're just not going to be able to have time to answer, so I want to give you a little bit of time to wrap up, and maybe talk about how they can get in touch with you. Some people wanted to know your Instagram handle, and I know you're about to talk about that, but if you do have any questions that we weren't able to get to, I was trying to keep up with them as best as I can. Kat will tell you how to connect with her.
Yes. So sorry, I completely forgot to put my Instagram handle on this, but you can absolutely email me with like more specifics and we can talk about that. And my Instagram handle is @ CATGAL 411. That's me. And I'll throw up on the highlights Instagram later, just like a little thank you, and I'll throw it up there too. In case you missed the spelling of that, which again is @CATGAL 411, which is Cat, Gal for Galliano, and 411 for information. And I will throw that up on the highlights Instagram later as a thank you. Yeah, and my email should be on the screen right now. If you want to reach out, we can always talk specifics. And yeah, I think that's it from my end.
Great. Thanks so much, Kat. Thank you all for joining us. And this was a really wonderful webinar. Learned a lot about Instagram today. So thank you, Kat. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone, for spending lunch with us.
Also, we will be sending out a link to the recording if anyone wants to see the recording afterwards.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in.